Hello, everybody. You know who I am. I'm your favorite English teacher. And it's the middle of the day here in Florianópolis, Brazil. So if you hear some sounds, well, you know what it is. It's the middle of the day in Latin America. And my guest, he probably knows all about that. But before I introduce him, I want to introduce him myself. I'm very happy to have him because for people that get introduced to my methodology, one of the first people I usually bring up is this man. His name is Idahosa Ness. I discovered him, I believe, in 2012. He's been around for a long time. I believe at that time he was first beginning to release his accent reduction courses for all types of languages: Spanish, Portuguese, German. And I don't know if I was one of the first people to buy it, but I definitely got the package of Spanish and Portuguese, and I learned a lot about phonetics, a lot about pronunciation from him. And I think that one of the reasons I was attracted to him is because he had blog posts and videos about going to Brazil, going to Colombia, going to Mexico. And at that time, I was really interested in Mexican Spanish and Colombian Spanish. And when I decided I was going to do these interviews, I knew one of the guests I definitely wanted to have for Latinos learning English was Idahosa, because, like I said, he influenced my methodology for teaching English to Latinos. So, Idahosa, I'm very happy that you're here. And yeah,
Cool, man.
how did I do? Is that a good introduction for you?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know you've been following for so long, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I bought your course, I think in 2012 or 2013. I was learning Spanish at that time. And I think also as I'm an English teacher, but I guess also a business person. And if somebody asked me, like, what kind of business do you want? I would say I want something like Idahosa had or has with the mimic method, where it's a very personal methodology, very personal course. Very hands-on. It's not like, I don't think so. We're going to talk about it a little bit today, but it's not like you hand off everything to somebody else and you're just kind of in the background, just, do that, do this. You want to be involved with your students' progress. And when I imagined what I was going to have in the future, I was like, I want something like Idahosa, obviously different, but something similar to what you have. So yeah, maybe for people who don't know you, because I'm guessing anybody's watching that's not going to know who you are, you're more famous in the polyglot community and people learning languages other than English. So you're the founder of the mimic method. So for my followers and my students, maybe explain to them what the mimic method is and how you got started with it in your own words.
Sure, yeah. So the mimic method, like mimic, imitate, is the name of my language learning methodology and approach and philosophy. And the basic idea is that we learn language by mimicking native speakers. That's how we learn our first language, mimicking our parents and the people around us. So learning a language as adults, what we're doing is we're watching how they communicate, how they move their bodies, how they make sounds, and then we copy that, we mimic that. So the issue is that most adults struggle in hearing the details and creating it with their mouth and all these subtle nuances of mimicry. So my method breaks that down into a science, right? So taking every single aspect, every physical aspect of communication, not just every detail happening in your tongue and your lips and your throat, but also we've expanded it to like your face, your hands, and your body. So it's very holistic and comprehensive. And I personally came up with it learning Spanish, my first second language. I grew up in the US, only speaking English. I went to Mexico when I was a teenager, 16, 17, and was doing the conventional way of learning, just, studying vocabulary, grammar. And through that, I worked hard. I was good at reading and writing in Spanish. But when I go into the streets and I would talk to Mexicans, I had no idea what they were saying. And then when I would speak, I was like, Joe, and it just like feeling stupid. And just the pure social problem was huge. And I was feeling isolated, all that. And the basic origin of the core idea was when I was in Mexico. I was staying with a host family, fully immersed in the culture, really struggling to communicate. And then one day I was like, you know what? Let me just stop worrying about the grammar, stop worrying about the vocabulary, spelling, all that. And let me just try to sound as Mexican as I can, like feel Mexican, move like a Mexican. And once I shifted my focus to that, I started to pay really close attention to how Mexicans spoke, how they moved, and I would start to mimic it. So oh, he's not saying yo quiero, he's saying yo quiero, right? And then, but like, no, not really like that. And then you start that journey and you go deeper and deeper and try to figure out every single detail. And really, it's just that process and that devotion to that opened up the language world for me. So this is before I had a methodology or anything. I was just doing it as best as I could. And after a couple of weeks of doing that, all of a sudden I was able to understand everything. And then when I was speaking, I was like, hola, ¿qué tal, amigo? Bueno, estamos aquí, qué chévere, güey. And then and I was like, whoa, like this other guy is speaking. I've grown this like little Mexican Idahosa baby inside of me. And now he's like a teenager and he's starting to engage. And I'm in like American Idahosa is just eating popcorn on the sideline watching, so it was kind of like this weird quasi-spiritual experience of creating this separate identity and engaging the Mexican culture and people through that identity until it became part of my identity. And that process was just super enriching and interesting. And for me, when I was 18, so I wanted to keep doing it. So after that, I went to China and did it for Chinese. After that, I finished college and I went to Brazil. I became obsessed with Brazilian culture and had to go there and just become Brazilian. And so did it there. And then while I was in Brazil, I had my idea for how to, I can make this into a methodology and then turn that methodology into a business. So about a year or two later, I launched the first products, and that's when you would have got my first course.
Yeah, exactly. First, which part of Mexico was it? Guadalajara? I think it was Guadalajara, wasn't it, or was it a different part?
Yeah, well, so actually, the detail. I went to the first time when I was 16 for like a couple of weeks with this program in Querétaro, and
okay, yeah.
That was the very beginning. And then in Guadalajara, I went back for several months.
Okay, all right. And that's where you basically got your foundation in Spanish. That's I guess more norteño. Well, I guess Tapatio Spanish is very interesting because it's kind of in between central Mexico and northern Mexico. Because sometimes I talk to people from Guadalajara and I ask them if they're norteños and they say, no, we're not norteños. It's like,
yeah, they got their
own. Yeah, they got their own little fiefdom in that part of Mexico. And yeah, your methodology is interesting. And I kind of follow a similar thing. In my case, well, I guess I learned about phonetics from you. And then I took the CELTA certificate, similar to what Ollie Richards did, and then he did the Delta. I never did the Delta, and I also learned a little bit about phonetics from that. But yeah, you were really my introduction. And with your methodology, I don't know if you've changed it in the last few years or not, but basically your main goal with somebody who is first learning about pronunciation is to teach them basically how to pronounce the sounds. And I think that's a big thing with people that learn languages is they don't realize that there's different sounds in different languages. For example, I teach Latinos and they kind of just assume that gringos speak the same way as they do, same sounds, just, different structure of the language. And then you teach them that, no, there's these sounds which don't exist in Spanish and you got to master them before you can even think about speaking with fluency and speaking with confidence. And that's something that I learned first from your methodology was, start with the sounds, with the, what do you call it in your course again? I think for English, it'd be like the 44 essential sounds.
Yeah, it's called, the elemental sounds.
The elemental sounds, exactly. So yeah, for you, the first part of your methodology, learn the elemental sounds. For people who don't know about learning pronunciation or learning accents or dialects. So why is it so important to learn the elemental sounds first?
Yeah, well, the idea is this. Right now, you and I are speaking English, but what's that mean? Oh, you speak English. On a pure physical level, all that's happening is I'm moving my mouth. And those movements, as well as my diaphragm and other things, but all these things in my body are moving. And that's producing sound. And then you're hearing those sounds, and then somehow you're reading my mind through those sounds, right? You're able to understand what I'm communicating. So people tend to just focus on the meaning layer, like, oh, what's this mean? What's this mean? Without realizing that comes out of a physical reality of sound and movement. So right now we're talking through Zoom. If I cut the physical electrical cable, we're not having a conversation anymore, right? So so that's what it is. So the sounds are the physical reality that makes communication possible. Now let's just say, there's 50 sounds, right? That elemental sounds. What I mean is, like, I say the word Idahosa, right? Idahosa is my name. That breaks down into E, D, ow, S, Idahosa. That same E shows up in feet, seat, heat. That same D shows up in dog, dare, danger. That same ow stays up in house, Dow Jones, pal, pal. Like, I'm
Yeah,
like on
yeah.
the
People ask me
anyway,
for examples sometimes in class. Like, you think it'd be so
mouth.
easy, and then you think, oh,
Yeah.
what are some more examples with D?
There
Yeah,
you go. Yeah.
yeah,
The mouth, south, all that kind of stuff.
uh,
Anyway, get the point. So these elemental sounds, there's like millions of words in English, but there's only a couple of dozen sounds that create all the words. Now let's just say that some of those sounds exist in Spanish, like the s and the, but a lot of those sounds don't exist in Spanish. The the I, the eh. So, which means that a Latino who's never spoken English before would never have moved their mouth in that way to create that sound. This is a new movement.
yeah.
So now let's just say let's just say there's 50 sounds, and then 15 of them are just completely new to you and you can't do them. Well, that's not a big deal. Well, it is, because it's a good, like, 70% of them or whatever, or sorry, 30% of them. Imagine now me speaking to you, 30% of the time I just like cut out. So I'm like talking to you like this, and you can kind of stay on, but it's a bit difficult because, right? And this is kind of what it's like for people when they hear a foreign language and they think the problem is like, oh, I guess I don't know vocabulary. But then you're like, hey, what you say? And they say it slow for you, like you're stupid. I said that, and you're like, oh, I knew that word, but for some reason I wasn't able to hear it. And that's because it's choppy. The physical level is there. So you just invest time in figuring out what those gaps are in your hearing, what specific sounds you can't hear, you can't produce, and then you train them into your motor memory, into your mind. Then downstream of that, the entire language opens up and things start to flow. That's what happened to me in Mexico. I kind of dialed in the fundamentals, and then all of a sudden, Spanish slowed down for me, and I was able to tap into the flow and speak it myself.
Uh, and I'm curious, when you were first discovering this for yourself, did you, like, for myself, after discovering your course, and then I kind of became a nerd. Well, not a nerd, but like I now know about the phonetic alphabet. So like I went to Wikipedia and I looked up the phonetic alphabet for different dialects, for Russian, for Portuguese, whatever it is. But of course, you were doing this before many other people were doing it. Was it you just observing Mexicans, or were you also trying to find information online about Mexican Spanish and the dialects? Or yeah, you just pure observational and trying to mimic as best as possible what the Mexicans around you were doing?
Yeah, so when I was in Mexico, it was just pure intuition, just observing, experimenting, and I didn't have any knowledge of phonetics or anything at the time. It wasn't until I got to Brazil, and what happened was, in Brazil, I knew by that point, because I learned Spanish and Chinese, that mimicry was the key in getting the dialing and pronunciation. But because I had already done it in two languages, because I grew up playing violin, and I grew up just kind of doing impersonations of my friends and my parents. My mom's Nigerian, so I would always like do her accent. What the hell are you doing? That kind of, it's kind of like, it's part of my character. I do that kind of stuff anyways. So compared to the average person, I would have had like a higher kind of general skill in perceiving the nuances of human speech communication. But then in Brazil, I was primarily interested in Brazil for the music, and I wanted to learn a bunch of Brazilian songs. So you do what anyone else would do. I hear a song I really like, and then I would find the lyrics, and then I'd try to read the lyrics and sing, but I kept getting stuck. I was like, this is not working. And then I eventually realized, I'm like, oh, what they're writing is not exactly what they're saying, because they're shortening words, they're blending words together. In this written sentence, there's 15 syllables, but in this actual line, there's only 14 notes. So somehow they reduced this, 16 into 14. So then I started what's going on here? And then trying to because I want to get perfect. I want to get these Brazilian songs perfect. Trying to I'm like, well, I can't use the normal writing system to do this. What can I do? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then this thing called phonetic, alphabet. Let me learn that. And then I started going down a rabbit hole on Wikipedia. So then just going down that rabbit hole for my own kind of personal purposes, while simultaneously in Brazil, I was also teaching myself these new musical idioms like Afro-Brazilian percussion. When I first got there, I wasn't able to feel it. I was getting pissed off because all the Brazilians were doing all this stuff, and I'm all stumbling around. I'm like, I'm not gonna be the worst guy in this room. I refuse. So I went home, and I was trying to participate in this escola de samba, samba school drum band, and I took I took all their songs and then just broke it down bit by bit, and kind of created a process for myself to do that. So while simultaneously trying to learn Brazilian lyrics, while trying to teach myself Brazilian instruments, drums, cavaquinho, stuff like that, and also making money teaching English to people and trying to get them to get the pronunciation, noticing the way most of Brazilians mispronunciations in English aren't because they can't make the sound, but because they see the letter. So the classic one for Brazilians is words that end in ed, like past tense.
Like they say walk it. I'm guessing the kind of
Yeah,
Spanish
I
speakers. They
walk
say
in.
walk it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
walk into the store, and so they really pronounce the A there. I was like, not walk it, it's walked.
Yeah.
But that's not how it's spelled. There's a vowel there in the writing. So, anyways, I was noticing all these things, and then one day I had this epiphany. I'm like, oh, this is how you do this, and that's how I got really deep into the phonetic piece, and then started even innovating our own stuff in phonetics. So I honestly believe if you want to learn phonetics, actually are you're better off with our program than you are at a college.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, yeah, I totally agree with that, because even now, I would also say the same thing about my program for Latinos, because yeah, I think you've gone through the same thing, and I went through it because of you, more or less, is that it's really hard to find good information about pronunciation, about dialects, about accents online. Probably every 6 months, I go to Google search just to see maybe there's somebody out there who is creating something. Even now, I'm focusing a bit more on Brazilian Portuguese, and there's a few good videos about the sotaques, the different accents in Brazil. But still, a lot of teachers, they don't really seem to appreciate and understand the importance of pronunciation. And well, I want to talk about a whole bunch of other things, but just tying into this, and I think you were the first one that ever introduced this to me. And then I realized it in my own classes. It's just, you said it, and then a few years later, I was teaching pronunciation, and I would have students telling me, I love your classes because I learned pronunciation, and then yeah, after about 3 months, it's like my ears open up. It's like I can watch Netflix and I don't have problems listening anymore. Or I now have conversations with my gringo friends in New Jersey or Florida or whatever, and I understand what they're saying. And at that moment, I just realized the power of teaching pronunciation, especially from the very beginning. It solves so many problems for people. And was that the same thing with you? Did you realize that yourself first, or did you realize it when you started teaching it to students, that teaching pronunciation basically opened up the ears and helped people to listen better?
Yeah, I mean, when I learned Spanish my first time, that was the main takeaway. Oh, okay, the key to learning a language is pronunciation first. So when I did Chinese, that was my focus. Chinese has tones, and so I spent countless hours really dialing in. When you first hear the tones, you're like, they're saying the same thing. But then I knew that that's just how it is. You just have to adapt your brain to it. So I trained hardcore, and then it was clear to me within the first couple of weeks of learning Chinese. And most people spend years learning Chinese, they never learn the tones, right? So I already knew that the pronunciation first was the key. And then when I started teaching people, I started kind of teaching people in China because my friends were all struggling a lot with Chinese, and I was trying to teach them the tones. And that's when I started to kind of appreciate that, like, even before I thought people just didn't care and they weren't trying, which is true as well. But then I saw people in China who everyone knew that if you don't pronounce things right in Chinese, then you will literally say the wrong thing and you can like offend somebody. So like in other places, they just won't understand you. In China, you can like literally say, like you can insult somebody's mom by having the wrong tone when you're just ordering food at a restaurant. So like so everyone knew that and they were trying their hardest to get Chinese pronunciation, but they weren't able to get it. So that was a wake-up call to me that like, oh, okay, like for some reason there's people can't do it, they can't figure it out. And then so in Brazil, I was like experimenting at the teaching front. So I was learning, for myself, and then teaching various levels of skill and people who don't have a musical background and people who don't have ear. And that really got me deeper and deeper into like what's actually happening in people's minds when they're trying to learn something new, what's actually happening in their mouths when you're learning new skills. So that's when I started to develop a more rigorous methodology for teaching it. But I knew from the beginning in Mexico that like, this is what's holding people back, is that they can't pronounce things because it's just, and that's the other thing too. I don't like using the word pronunciation because that word has two problems with it. One, people just associate pronunciation as like a flourish on language. Like there's the language and then there's like your pronunciation and your accent. Like accent literally is like if I'm decorating a house, I'll put like a light accent. Yeah. Right. Whereas we're talking about a foundation piece, not a decorative piece.
It's not something extra. Like this is something that you should have, you need to have.
Yeah. This is what I'm doing. I'm pronouncing. That's all I'm doing. I'm just thinking it. And then the other thing is that the other thing about pronunciation is that there's a false duality between pronunciation and hearing. When you actually study how it works, you hear with your mouth. It's we hear and we perceive through our bodies. So in the same way, if you're a samba dancer and like imagine you're a professional samba dancer and you see another samba dancer doing her thing, then you're experiencing through your eyes something completely different than some random gringo who's never danced samba in their life. Like they just see a bunch of legs going like this, right? Yeah. But then the dancer's seeing like, oh, nice, she's got the bait weight. She's seeing so much.
It's kind of like somebody playing sports, right? Like if I played basketball before, like I'm gonna notice things a lot differently than some casual fan who's watching basketball, right?
Exactly. So the more you can actually make those movements yourself, the more perceptive you can be of it. It's the exact same for this. The more I can actually create those movements with my mouth, pronunciation, then the easier time I'll have hearing other people pronouncing those.
And I was talking to an accent coach a few days ago from Russia. And one thing that she said, I want to see if you agree or not, because I think you do, is you got to teach the sounds, and you teach the sounds in your courses and I teach the sounds in my courses. But one thing she said, that which I found interesting, is that it also takes time because like they're muscles in the mouth, and it's kind of like going to the gym. You're not going to get ripped muscles within 1 week. It's a process. And basically she was saying that we can teach the sounds, but it's also going to take time for the students to get their muscles to the point where they're capable of making those sounds. So from your own experience, like, do you agree with that? Where you teach the sounds and anybody can do it. It just sometimes it takes time for those muscles to get activated and begin producing the sounds in a natural way.
Oh, for sure. I mean, so the way I break it down in my program is, and this is, again, we're just speaking about phonemes. Actually, I've changed my methods a lot in the past few years.
Yeah.
Because I put all my stuff out for free and then went into a coaching model. So we've like changed things a lot. So now the process is, before you even get to any sounds, the very first thing you do is develop really clear awareness of the entire instrument. So how to control your tongue, how to control your soft palate, how to control your larynx. So you find all the pieces, you control them. Then for each sound, there's tutorials on how to create it. And that, some sounds people won't be able to get at first. They have to really explore around before they actually get it to hit for the first time. And then once you do make it hit, then you still have to combine those sounds with the other sounds to make syllables. So certain combinations are challenging for people. And then once you have those syllables, those syllables need to combine into phrases, and then
Hmm.
that becomes challenging. So at each stage of this, you have sounds, syllables, phrases,
Yeah.
and then even above all that, you can get someone to be able to perfectly mimic a phrase or a song lyric, and they can
Hmm.
do everything right. But then when they go into conversation, they just revert back to their like normal habits. So
Yeah.
then the final piece is integrating those movement patterns into your identity,
Yeah,
and
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
that's so it's just many levels, and each levels
Yeah.
takes time and repetition and exploration and process.
Yeah. And for like, followers of mine, students of mine, so I guess example of this would be, for example, yeah, the R in English for a Spanish speaker. It's very difficult to learn. So yeah, first you learn the R, and then you're saying like syllables and combinations. So like, for example, the TR or the DR for Spanish speakers is also very difficult because of the strange combination how we pronounce it. After that, like a word or a word in a sentence, and then at the very end, yeah, you're saying complete sentences. And I liked what you said about making it part of your identity, because yeah, even for me, I can, not as good as yourself, but I can pretend to be a Mexican, speaking with a Mexican flow. But when I go to Mexico and I just speak to people, you kind of revert back to your original identity. In my case, my very gringo identity. And for me, it feels very uncomfortable sometimes to, I guess, abandon that identity and go into a new identity. Uh, it, and yeah, when I listen to you speak Brazilian Portuguese, or I listen to you speak Spanish, you seem to have you're very easily able to switch identities. I'm wondering, were there any tricks for you to do that? Like, did you have to really force yourself to, okay, it sounds silly from my gringo perspective to speak like this, but I know for them, the native speakers, it sounds really good.
Yeah, so this gets into the stuff I'm by our new stuff. So before, for like almost 10 years, I only taught mimicry,
Mhm.
pronunciation. And then people would get good at that stuff, but then when it comes to actually being in conversation, they didn't know what to do, or they're afraid. So I'm like, all right, let me just figure this out. So 2 years ago, I started doing conversation coaching.
Okay.
And what I do is I get, say, you and a Mexican person on the call, and then I'm like, okay, start talking. I'll just observe what your patterns are and how you're engaging. And then, but okay, stop. Now we're gonna do it again, but now we're gonna put you in a role play scenario. Like you're robbing a bank, and this is the cop, and they're coming to
Mhm.
and then I was experimenting all this stuff, and it basically I combine things from drama and theater,
Mhm.
because we're talking about identity. And again, um, people vary in their natural comfort in playing different roles. So I've always been like a playful and dramatic person since I was a kid. Like I was always kind of making jokes and impersonating people, like I said, and I don't mind like playing like a girl I wanted to, hey, like like stuff like that. And like I just do that. So I tell stories. When I tell stories, I won't be like, oh, he said this. I'd be like, I walked in and he's like, yo, what you doing here, man? I'm like, oh, so it's just kind of like these kind of storytelling things I've always done. It's a very African thing I got from my mom.
Yeah.
So I started noticing, I'm like, okay, other people aren't as confident doing these things. So
Mhm.
set aside language, there's these other set of skills and like competencies and confidences that people need to build up. So I started to break those down into micro pieces. Like, okay,
Mhm.
honestly, the simplest thing I do with people is I'd have them do a scene, and then I'm like, okay, you are a Mexican. You're not American. Your name's not Kyle. Your name is Pedro, right? And
Yeah.
this is your backstory. And it's like, oh, now I want you to buy this water as Pedro, not as Kyle. And then you'll
Yeah.
do it. Por favor, like, stop. And I'm like a director. I'm like, no, give me more. I want
Yeah.
Pedro, and
Yeah.
then like basically I found that like most of it is just psychological barriers. And you just have to
Yeah.
like get people ease into it. And
Uh-huh.
you can actually do a full send. Like you can do a full send like Mexican Pedro if you just allowed yourself to do it. So it's kind
Yeah.
of creating a safe environment for people to do that, and then allowing them to like do different scenes as that character. And the way it works is that at first you're super uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and then next time you're like less so and less so, and then it just becomes second nature when you get especially when you get the social feedback. Because what happens is, especially the gringo identity is an established identity, right?
Mhm.
So when you come speaking as a gringo in any place, especially as American gringo,
Mhm.
you're uh it's not like people are like, what is this? I've never seen this before. Like we all like,
Mhm.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, like this guy's a white guy, blah, blah, blah. So like it's easy, even though we don't like that identity, it's easy to assume that identity, like, oh, here I am. And
Mhm.
you actually have to kind of set that challenge for yourself where you're like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm like the Guido. I'm like that dude who's like, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you're one of us, blah, blah, blah. So it's mostly kind of a spiritual kind of thing, a psychological challenge. So that's
Yeah.
why I made this coaching practice and other things to like help people with that aspect.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost like you have to give yourself self affirmations in the mirror. Like, you are the
Yeah, yeah. You're like
Mexican.
talking to
You are the
me.
Mexican. Yeah, yeah,
Hablas conmigo. Hablas
yeah.
conmigo.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Actually, I'm curious to hear your opinion about this because I have a few students. I found this is a pattern with my Latin American students from like southern Mexico and Peru. I guess the more indigenous Latinos is
Yeah.
that they seem to have a really hard time, I guess, speaking with a more gringo identity. Because like in those cultures, I find that they speak very humbly, they speak very quiet, they speak, hola, sí, señor, sí, todo lo que quiere, sí. And then when they speak English, I can teach them all the sounds and their pronunciation is good, but they're still speaking with that very, I guess, indigenous Latino flow. And it makes me a bit uncomfortable sometimes because obviously like you don't want to tell somebody like I want you to get rid of your identity. So I'm curious about your opinion about this is yeah, like how what do you tell somebody like whether they're gringo or Latino or Brazilian, whatever they are, what are the benefits of I guess changing identity and in a way abandoning their identity? Because I find sometimes with my students or even people on social media, they have this very they have almost this barrier to abandoning who they are. Like, no, I'm Mexican. I don't care if the gringos don't like how I speak. Like I should be proud that I'm Mexican. If I have an accent, like it's okay. And like in a way, I agree with that. But I also feel like you have more confidence, you have better conversations if you can get a bit more of an identity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a deeper discussion on identity. Identity is a very profound
Yeah.
aspect of our psychology. And so one thing I make clear for people is, okay, so you're describing there's a when we do stuff, a lot of times people's first reaction is that, oh, I have to abandon an identity.
Yeah.
I have to pretend and fake or do all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So it's kind of these kind of more kind of negative framings on it. And then I respond and say, okay, let me ask you this, Mexican, American, Japanese, whatever. It's like, how do you speak to your homies on that you're playing basketball with the same way you speak to your mom and your grandparents? It's
Mhm.
like probably not. You probably have a different way of carrying yourself and communicating physically everything with that. Are you being fake with one versus the other? No, it's just that human beings, the way it works is we actually have multiple identities. The way we interact with people is based on context. So even
Mhm.
if you're a monolingual person, you probably have multiple contexts, like the work context
Yeah.
versus the way you talk to your wife in bed is probably different from how you talk to like store clerk, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully,
Like,
yeah, hopefully, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
That'd be
like
awkward.
yeah, so we already have this kind of so that's what an identity is. You have the person, and then you have a context, and then identity is just the role you play in that context. If it's
Mhm.
basketball, I'm playing point guard. But
Yeah,
if I'm on big man right now, I'm not gonna play him like a point guard. I'm gonna play the role of Shaq here, and then
yeah, yeah,
play
yeah,
the
yeah.
so anyways, that's just how identity is in general. So everyone has multiple identities, whether they're
Mhm.
aware of it or not. Now the idea is that, okay, cool. Now imagine you're entering into a new context. Again, forget about language. Now, like imagine you got like conscripted into war, right? And then like you're like, and maybe you're not really like that often, but you better start being like that now or you're gonna die, right? So it's like, boom, okay, now I have to like assume
Yeah.
this new identity of like a fighter and like all that kind of stuff. So this is what humans do is that we enter into new contexts and then we have to survive those contexts by finding where we fit in. And then we observe and mimic how other people are playing that role. And then we fit in by mimicking that role. Right. So
Mhm.
this is describing basic human dynamics.
Yeah.
So now what happens when we go into a new culture, into a new language? You're not abandoning anything. You're just like, okay, I want to flow better with these people. So let me choose a role that fits into their flow, right? If they play basketball this way, I'll play basketball that way. So it's all about fitting in, but you're not abandoning identity, you're expanding your identity. So it's not like
Okay.
when I speak Brazilian, Portuguese, or Mexican that I like betrayed my American
Yeah.
heritage or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just the same way I speak to my mom one way and I speak to my friends this way.
Yeah.
I speak to my American friend this way and I speak to my Brazilian friends in Portuguese like this, my Mexican friends like this. So when you
Yeah.
do it and you do it well, not only does no one, no one's offended or accused of anything, everyone's like impressed and happy. And then they feel cool and welcome around you. They're like, yeah, I have had times people be like, they'll say this thing like, oh, you know how the gringos are, and then blah blah blah, and then not even being aware of me, like, oh yeah, I forgot you. Yeah, I mean that's not like he's not like a normal. Like,
he's
when they
different.
say
Yeah, he's
gringo,
different. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they're talking about those people who don't actually, who don't actually blend in with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that's what it is. Like humans, we tend to think that we divide on how people look, like skin color, all that kind of stuff. And though that's true, I find that if you move and sound like
Yeah.
someone, you dance like them, you flow like them, then
Yeah.
people accept you and they like
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah. I think most of my Spanish is based on Colombian Spanish, and yeah, like I love Colombian culture, the dancing, the music, the cumbia, the salsa, and yeah. So my similar experience to you is that yeah, Colombians will be talking about like gringos or Americans, like yeah, oh, but I don't like those ones, but yeah, you're different. You're a different type of gringo. I like how you are.
yeah.
I'm wondering about because I guess in our society, people are very results based. In your own case, with your own methodology, do you focus on like timelines and results, or for you is a very organic process? I find with most people that get really good at, I guess in your case, you call it mimicry or pronunciation, is normally it's just a process, just being able to observe and to get better over time. But I'm not too sure with your own methodology. If you tell people, yeah, like in 2 months, we're going to get you to this point, and then 2 months after that, you'll get to this point. How is your approach to teaching pronunciation to your students, to your clients?
Yeah, so in the culture and especially in the business culture, there's a massive emphasis on giving people calendar times because it's really feel like boom, in 2 months this will happen, in 3 months this will happen. That'd be great, to whatever degree you can do that. But with these things, these kind of complex kind of skills, people are starting from so many different places.
Yeah.
So the psychological thing, some people are already like, woo, we play active.
They're already open. They're ready. They're ready
Yeah.
to take in all the information, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Other people so people, when they hear me say like, hey, we're going here, we're going to be a new identity, acting, flowing, blah, blah, blah. People are either going to be like, that sounds amazing. Or people are like, that sounds terrifying, and like, both are attracted to it, but for different ways. So, it's a different thing. And then, but really counter time is like not the time they really care about. After counter time, you have what I call game time or field time. So it's like, people are like, oh, I've been studying Spanish or English for 2 years and I still can't. And it's like, well, how many conversations have you had? Like, oh, maybe 5 or 6. It's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then,
like
and it's
if you like you could be studying Spanish for 3 years, but if you're only studying like for 2 hours every Sunday, then yeah, it's really not that much time. It's maybe a few months in total.
Yeah.
If you
so it was like your cumulative minutes actually doing the thing is what matters, not how much time you spent like eating and playing and doing other stuff. And then even then, okay, 2 hours of study time, what are you doing in that time? If you're just doing flashcards and like playing video games on your phone, then that's different from like being in a real world conversation and trying to solve, trying to connect to people, relate. And then even that immersion time, immersion is also a function of how much you're engaging conversation. So you can go and live in a country, sit there in conversation, people are talking, and you're just sitting here like on the wall, not saying anything. And that's very different from you being like, wait, blah, 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 coming in there. So there's no really way of quantifying that piece. Like how deeply engaged are you? How many minutes do you spend deeply engaged and active in conversation? That's really the timeline that actually matters. So I tend to focus my stuff on getting people into that. And I focus less on time and more on blockage and flow. Okay. So you come to our program for pronunciation and mimicry, and you find out, oh, okay, these are the sounds I can't pronounce. This is the melody pattern I can't do. I'm blocked on it. And then cool, let's get you unblocked. And then you're flowing. Once it's
Hmm.
flowing, you just get better every day just by listening and mimicking, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing, conversation. There's all these different things I've found that I've kind of worked out through my coaching practice that people get blocked on, not just linguistically, but psychologically,
Yep.
socially. And then it's kind of like, cool, these are all the things, you have these 10 blockages. You know, you need the psychological block here, this body language block here, you're too
Mhm.
stiff, you need to make more eye contact, all these things, unblock these things and that into habits. Then when you're in conversation, you'll enjoy it and you'll walk away better. And
Mhm.
because you enjoy it, you want to come back to it. And because you're getting better, you'll keep getting better. And as
Yeah.
long as you keep getting better by having more conversations, then we're good. Then
Mhm.
I've done my job as a teacher. Like
Yeah.
for me, what I most enjoy is like unblocking someone and then not
Mhm.
talking to them for 6 months and coming back and they
And
got like
yeah.
wife and like two kids,
Yeah.
2 kids in 6 months.
So I'm living the Colombian dream right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my passion. I actually don't
Yeah.
like teaching. I like
Yeah.
unblocking and empowering people to become autonomous learners, you know?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying because yeah, for me to teach, I guess traditional English classes is incredibly boring for me. It's more trying to give the students the confidence to
Yeah.
interact with the language and really show them how gringos actually speak. Because I find a big thing with my students or my followers is they learn this very artificial English that no
Yeah.
gringo
Hello,
actually
sir.
speaks. Yeah, yeah,
Nice
yeah.
to
They
meet
speak.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody speaks like that. So I try to show them like this is how we pronounce. This is how we speak. This is how we behave. And yeah, I think it's maybe for a lot of people it seems like a small thing, but I also try to teach them like the gringo psychology. I do lots of videos on my YouTube like explaining to Latino women like how gringo men think because obviously right now there's lots of gringo men and Latino women hooking up, I guess we would say, and they have a hard time culturally understanding how the gringo mind works. So okay, this is how my mind and the mind of other gringo men works, and this is probably why you're having problems understanding us. So yeah, it's
Well, that reminds me, I want to
when
come back to what you said about I think you said Peruvian and Southern Mexican
yeah,
students who, culturally on average might be a bit more like reserved or
yeah,
something. And then I was going to say, with my training, well, speech, like you have like the vowels and consonants, that's one
yeah,
aspect. But what loads more heavily on the persona and
yeah,
identity is the vocal folds,
okay,
like
yeah,
the vocal
mm-hmm,
cords. So
yeah,
the way that, so getting people to tap into melody and tuning that in. And then even more than that is the full facial expression and body language and hand gesture.
yeah. Because
So doing
I find with those students, yeah, it's I try to tell them like you need to open your vowel. Yeah, they do the vowels like they say the vowel correctly, but it's like ooh, and it's like no, it's like you really gotta open it up a little bit more in American
yeah,
English because you're pronouncing it correctly. It's just it doesn't sound confident. Yeah, the way that they pronounce it in English because they're using as their own identity to pronounce
yeah,
English. It
exactly.
sounds a little bit weak, and like you're not gonna
Yeah,
get much respect. Like because some people will say, "Oh, the gringos are being racist," and it's like if there was a white gringo guy speaking the exact same way, I would treat him the exact same way because he doesn't sound confident. He sounds like he's somebody who I could take advantage of or just a weak-minded person. I know you're not
yeah,
that, but for my ears and for my family's ears, for everybody in Gringolandia's ears, it sounds weak and you're not going to get a lot of respect if you keep on speaking like
exactly.
that. Yeah. So
So
yeah,
that's what
it's
I'm
like
saying.
the
Like starting it from the ground though, from the body. So I usually just put everything on mute and then be like, all right, look at this, look at like this Brad Pitt video or something like that. Like someone who's
Mhm.
like carrying themselves, whatever. And then like,
Yeah.
cool, forget about pronunciation, forget about all that kind of stuff. What are his shoulders doing? Like, okay, how is he moving? Blah, blah, blah. And then if you get them to do character without voice, because this is actually more complex, and you
Yeah.
get into this kind of thing first, then layering the speech on top of that. Like now say that as Brad Pitt. So those types of things I've been getting into in the recent years. And yeah, so it's kind of like you have the technical details, but if the person's not psychologically there with their whole body and mind, then you
Yeah.
can only go so far.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just want to kind of make that point where you can't just separate one from the other. It's all one whole body, whole mind, body, spirit experience.
Yeah, for sure. It's something I do a little bit, but I think I need to do it more. And especially after talking to you now, I think I should do it more. Is that I get students to read out loud one of the texts that I wrote for them, and yeah, sometimes get them. Okay, I want you to say it to me in an angry way. I want you to say it for me in a sad way. I want you to say it for me with different emotions. And yeah, I find, like you said, most people have a hard time like tapping into those emotions. Like it seems like something so simple, like just speak like you're angry, and they say it the exact same way that they would say it
Yeah,
regular English. So yeah, I like what you said, blockages where yeah, it's literally a blockage in their head, and they have a hard time connecting with the emotions that they need in order to really express themselves well in a new language. So yeah, I gotta look more into that for sure. I think I was gonna say something else about no, actually, one thing you said before, and I really wanted to touch on it just to find out a little bit more is like for example, maybe it's not connected with this, but I really don't want to forget about is with some sounds, for example, the R, you said that sometimes it takes a while for them to master it, and it's because you have to work around it. So I'm curious about that. When you say work around it, is it basically just self-awareness of the mouth, where like just getting the tongue to move around the mouth until they find the spot where they, for example, they pronounce the R correctly? Is that what you mean by like moving around the mouth?
Yeah, so the R sound is created by moving and contracting your tongue in a very specific way. And before you're able to contract your tongue in that very specific way, you need to have a general awareness and control of your tongue.
Yeah.
So kind of, doing different exercises that like where you start to distinguish the front of your tongue from the back of your tongue, from the middle of your tongue, finding different muscles. Like I show like anatomy apps now of like every single muscle inside the tongue. You can isolate it, like the one that makes it wide and shit, and like all the stuff. And like, so then what happens is when you do all that kind of stuff and you get this heightened awareness of the tongue in general, now you're like, great, now make your tongue put it to the and then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, now. So that's what it is. It's kind of like just laying the groundwork, to be a metaphor. It's like if maybe our ultimate goal is for you to place this pen on that cabinet over there, but the room's pitch dark. You can't see it. So we can't see inside your mouth, it's pitch dark. So before we do that goal, I first have you kind of stumble around in the room, feeling everything. And then I'm like, okay, now put the pen over there without falling over.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. I want to move on to other things because maybe people are tired of us talking about pronunciation. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else about pronunciation that you think is important for people to know?
Yeah, I guess the final thing I'll say is I always like to make metaphors when I train someone. I always ask them, hey, do you play any sports? Do you do any dancing? Do you do any like complex motor skill of anything? There's gross motor, which is sports, martial arts, and then there's fine motor with your hands, playing instruments, sculpting, painting, whatever. And have you picked up anyone recently as an adult, so you can remember the process of learning it? Like, oh yeah, I did, this and that. So like, great. You remember the process when you first tried playing the guitar chord and you're just like, ugh. And when you first attempt a new complex motor skill, it literally feels impossible. Like it's just so awkward. And you're just like, and you see the teachers like, yeah, like this. You're like, how are you doing that? Right. Yeah. But then you just keep doing it. And you're like, oh, you keep doing it. And then you like, after a couple of days, you wake up in the morning, you're kind of like, oh, there it is. And then now you're doing it. So this is just the natural process of learning complex skills. The problem is that when people kind of know that if you like do dance steps or whatever, you kind of know that that's how it works. But if you, for some reason, people associate language as like this like separate thing, and so they go like, I can't do it. I don't have the gene.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just like understand that when you try something, it's like super awkward. That's how it's supposed to be. Just stick with the process, and then things which go to sleep, let your brain and new neurons form and come back, will be better. So yeah, just that patience and just awareness of what the process is experienced like. Because again, I see people so many times, like I know as a teacher that they need I can kind of intuitively feel where someone's at with the sound. And I'm like, okay, 15 more attempts and they're gonna get it. But
Yeah.
they'll do 3 and then they'll give up. And you're like,
Hmm.
no, it's
Hmm.
12 more. Just do 12
Yeah.
more. Get it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's a little bit difficult, like if you just do a little bit more. Like, I know with all my students, yeah, like just do a little bit more. You're gonna get it, and yeah, they'll
Yeah,
do
yeah.
the same
It's hard
expression
to
as
see
you
with
just
them.
showed. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, well, you talked about also immersion time. And I wanted to ask you about that because yeah, I'm a bit of a quiet guy. I'm a bit of an introvert, and of course, lots of people who learn languages they can be introverted, especially my students. Like they're just regular people. They're not trying to talk to everybody in the street. But you talked about being in conversations in order to really put into practice what people learn from pronunciation. But I'm just wondering because yeah, you've been to many different countries. You have a lot of experience doing this. Like, do you have any conversation starters? Are there any ways that you like to make start conversations with people when you go to a country?
My first response to that is actually that every year of my life as I get older, I focus more and more on body language and energy than I do on words and content. So
Yeah.
when I think about, like, I just got to Montreal now, I'm meeting new people,
Mm-hmm.
and most of my attention when I'm like, okay, coming into a new place, I gotta set a good impression, reach people. Most of my attention and energy is going into things like my smile and my eye contact and like
Yeah.
my direct, like kind of like how I
Mm-hmm.
look at people and like, oh, what's your name? Hey, da, da, da.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, 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 and like those types of things. And those is an infinite game there. It's just there's so many subtle nuances, and especially nowadays, especially in Canada, by the way, I feel like because they had like a super long lockdown here. So I think since last time I was here, people have gotten like just way socially like
A
everyone's
little
just
bit
like
socially awkward.
awkward.
They don't know how to
Yeah,
talk to people. Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of like of like averting their gaze weird.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those types of things, if you especially for introverts and stuff like that, um, if you just like harness all your energy into getting, especially in the first couple of seconds, like a really good energy and bond with someone, it sets the tone both for how they respond to you
Mm-hmm.
and then how you feel. And then, when you feel comfortable in a space, you naturally generate things to talk about.
Yeah.
When you're nervous in the space, you can't think of anything to say. You're
Yeah.
just like you're in fear mode, and then fear mode narrows your attention, and then you just like you're in paralysis, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Makes sense.
so that's my thing. I think I get to the root cause, which is kind of physical comfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, if you give enough good energy and you feel comfortable in the environment, yeah, you're gonna notice things around you and you're just gonna start conversations naturally based on what you see, more or less.
Yeah, and then also I just add another thing onto that too, like getting people to talk about themselves and asking questions. And when you're asking questions and just look at people's faces. And I teach face a lot in my courses. And again, if you focus too much on what people say, like what people say is not important. Half the time, it's how they're saying it that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So one little small example. You ask someone like, oh, so what do you do here? Like, what do you do? And they talk about their work, and a lot of people don't like their work. This is very common. People don't like their job, and you can
Yeah.
tell that within a second. But oh, what do you do for work? And someone might be like, doesn't know what the job is. They might be like, oh yeah, I work in a legal firm here. Then we do different contracts on this. Versus what do you do? Like I work as a lawyer, and
Mm-hmm.
and like,
Yeah.
and he gets like, okay, this guy doesn't like his work, so let me
Yeah.
be like, okay, cool. And do you play any
Yeah.
sports? Or like, what do you do on the weekends? Like, oh, I kayak. I'm like, oh, sick, kayak. Tell me more. And then you just kind
Yeah.
of follow the thread of where their excitement is, and
Mm-hmm.
then going into that.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, I also wanted to talk to you about business, and of course, you've been in Latin America, so I want to talk about Latin America a little bit too. Guess I want to talk about business first. So when I first discovered you, I think like many people who discovered you in the very beginning, it was from the viral YouTube video of you rapping and singing in the different languages. Well, I guess so. First question about that is, uh, were you expecting that video to go viral, or was it just something that you threw together really quick and you said, I wanna make a YouTube video showing myself speaking these different languages?
Yeah. So I had just beta tested my first Spanish program and was getting ready to launch it officially.
Mhm.
So I created that video to generate buzz and attention and traffic to the website. So I definitely made it with an intention of, distributing it and kind of get as many views as I could. But really my primary motivation in making it was just purely artistic. Like
Yeah.
I think I was in Colombia at the time, and I was just kind of walking down the street, and I was like, and I would walk a lot, and then I would like freestyle rap, and then like I'm like, ooh, this is a good song, and then I just had the idea for the song, and come home and playing it, and then like I was like, I just started creating that song, and then I started having the ideas for like the video, and I was kind of like, ooh, digga digga digga. So it was mostly just like a labor of love. Like
Yeah.
I just had a creative vision that I wanted to make, and then I married it to my kind of business goal of getting stuff out there. And then yeah, people took to it very well. But I think the reason why it worked so well is because my primary focus was on just my artistic expression more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously nowadays it's more very common. I'm pretty sure you travel a lot, so you meet a lot of guys and girls that work online, have their own online businesses. But in a way, you were one of the first people, I guess, from my generation, I guess from that millennial generation that started making money online. Uh, so, so I'm curious, from the beginning, were you inspired by somebody, or was it just kind of by chance that you fell into this profession?
No, so what happened was I always wanted to travel. That was like my
Mhm.
singular goal when I was a kid. Was travel and be successful. That's what kind of and like so like I went to college. I went to like the School of Foreign Service in Georgetown because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to travel and be successful. You're like 15. You're like, how do I do that? Like, oh, well, I guess diplomat. And then
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
what's the best school for diplomacy? And I went there. And then
Yeah.
my first week in school, I went to a program. This guy was a career diplomat, and he came and he just gave us it. He gave it to us straight. He's like, "Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna spend the first 5 years denying people's visas in some basement somewhere." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to do any of that." So within the
Yeah.
first week of school, I was like,
Well,
"Well,
well, did he present it like in a very negative way, or was he just like he's like
he was just very
positive? He's like,
realistic."
yeah, just realistic. Okay, yeah,
He was
yeah.
like the 6-year-old guy, always the 18-year-old kids, like, oh, cool, international. He's like, listen, this is what the reality is. So I'm
Yeah.
eternally with that guy. He just like,
Yeah. It's like I'm a career bureaucrat. It's not as glamorous as you think. It's not all dinner parties and talking to locals. No, it's a lot different than that.
exactly, yeah. Like I remember the part that stuck with me was the fact that with two things. One, you couldn't you have to do like a I forget what it's called, but like a you can't choose where you're going. Like you have to go to a danger zone, and then
Okay. Yeah, they might
like
choose Iraq and you don't have any choice. You got to go to Iraq.
exactly, you have to go to Iraq, and then also like say you're cool, like, oh, I want to go to Brazil, for example.
Mhm.
But he painted this very vivid image of me working like, alone, spending most of my time in an office building in Brazil with people coming in trying to get visas to America. Like, por favor.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
I can
you just have
imagine.
to fill a quota. You're like, sorry, ma'am. And I'm like, that sounds horrible.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but anyways, that after that, I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I didn't really have any plan. I was kind of like just like going to school and like partying and stuff. And then I went to China when I was 19. And in China, that's when everything changed for me. That's
Okay.
when I started kind of doing my own learning because the Chinese program was like not worth my time. And then I
Yeah, I
started learning
remember. I remember you wrote copy about. Yeah, I remember the story. You're like, yeah, I went to this Chinese school and I was learning diddly squat, and then I just went to the streets and started talking to people. Got
yeah,
me a
yeah. It
better
was like very
education.
academic centric,
Yeah,
like all
yeah,
your days like doing characters. I'm like, I want to talk to Chinese people. And
yeah, yeah.
then I also started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu there.
Okay,
Um, and I met other expats for the first time, living like interesting lives in
okay.
Beijing in 2008. But then I read 4 Hour Work Week, and that went.
I was actually gonna say, I wonder, like, did you read Tim Ferriss? And yeah, because I think most guys from our generation, they usually what they say, like, I read 4 Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss, and that was
That's
the
what it
start.
was. So
Yeah,
once I read that book, I was 2008, and I read it, and then I was like, this is what I've always wanted. I just didn't know
mhm,
it was an option, and now that
yeah,
I know it's an option, I now have no option but to pursue this
mhm,
option. So that's what it
yeah,
was.
yeah. And like, because yeah, now you're obviously one of the most respected pronunciation coaches in the world. So you found out from 4 Hour Work Week about this freedom that you could have by having your own business. Did you automatically know you wanted to do the pronunciation coaching, or did you take some time, a year, 2 years, trying to figure out what you could possibly do to fulfill the lifestyle that Tim Ferriss described in the book?
Yes, I read that after my sophomore year, my second year in university. So I had it in my head, but I didn't. So I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't quite know how to do it yet. In college, I did like different hustles and different projects, and then at one point I wrote like a book, like an ebook on for students, because when you're in college, the only people is like student psychology. So I wrote a book and tried to sell it. And I did different kind of entrepreneurial ventures in college, but didn't have any kind of like proper like online business thing that was taken off the ground. And it wasn't until I was in Brazil. I went to Brazil after I graduated college. I just went there because I just wanted to be in Brazil. So I wanted to just learn the language. So I was just there and making money. I saved money working jobs, and then but I had in my head like, man, I wanted to be able to keep traveling like this. And then one day it just kind of clicked. I'm like, oh wait, I can make a method for pronunciation, and I can turn that into a Tim Ferriss style business.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm just curious from the beginning, was it successful from the jump, or were there a lot of struggles in the beginning trying to make it into something that could fund your lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it was successful in the sense that people resonated with the message and they liked the product. I didn't have any business savvy at the time, so I'm not sure what you paid for the program, but for a long time I was charging I was giving like personal.
Was it 197? Yeah, 197.
Okay, you got 197. When I first had it out, it was like
2000.
It was like $40, and like.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, you're doing like the cheap pricing. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know what to charge stuff, and then I was like, I was like not confident in it, and you did my program. You learned how to sing like Spanish lyrics with an accent. You send it in recordings. I would listen to your recording.
Yeah, I remember you gave me feedback. So I remember that.
That feedback stuff. So I was getting feedback, but at the time, what you were getting, I was charging $40 for the whole program, and like people would email me like, "Hey man, can I like send you more money? Because I feel guilty that I'm getting all this value for such cheap." So I didn't have any business skills yet. It wasn't until I started hanging out with other, like you're mentioning, now there's a lot of digital nomads and people working at companies, blah blah. But before the word even digital nomad existed, there was very few of us who were like doing online business. So I started to like meet those people around 2013. I had like two other friends who were doing it, like one from college and like another guy. But then I started meeting communities, and then from the being in that community, I started to develop business savvy and exchanging to write books. And then I'm like, okay, here's like actually build a proper business and structure things and make money.
All right. So in the beginning, it was just kind of, what do we say in English? Grab me at straws, trying to figure things out. And then, over time, meeting different people, you start to develop that business savvy to make it something worthwhile. All right. And right now, because actually I was a bit surprised that you responded to my email so quickly, because I was like, I want him. I want to do an interview. He's been a big influence on my life. I was like, I haven't seen a video from him in a long time. His social media, there's hardly anything on social media. I don't even know what he's doing at the moment. I think the last time I heard he was alive. I don't know if he's alive or not. Like, well, for me, I always saw you seem like such a spiritual guy. Like maybe he's on the beach in Bali doing like a yoga retreat for a year. I'm not too sure. So I was surprised when you sent me an email right away, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm in Montreal right now. I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know. So like right now, are you still fully focused on the Mimic method, or do you have other business ventures at the moment?
So actually Mimics. So, actually my right now, especially actually this week, I'm finishing up the work. And in the past year, I've trained up now. I've made a new methodology, a much more rigorous methodology, and started training coaches in it. So now we have our first kind of like certified trained coaches in different languages. And so it was a whole new business model from my old one. And now they're taking over things. I'm just kind of like, the goal is to get to a point where I'm just kind of like the fun uncle who comes in and like spiritual, and then everyone else is kind of the thing. And I'm still involved like the research and development side of things, but I actually don't like business or running. I'm more like creative and education side.
Yeah.
What I do is I invent. I'm an inventor of methods. So my primary passion and focus right now for the past year is I'm launching a whole new program and business soon in, for lack of a better word, fitness space.
Okay. Mhm.
So basically, I took those techniques for teaching movement in the mouth and
Mhm.
expanded it to the entire body. So
Okay.
that's what I'm doing now. So and basically it translates to like martial arts stuff. So personally, I stopped having when I was in my 20s, I wanted to just learn a lot of languages, or more specifically, I'd be intrigued by a people like the Brazilians or the Colombians or the Chinese or the Germans,
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, what are they doing over there? And I just want to find out what they're doing over there. And therefore
Mhm.
I need to learn their language to do so.
Yeah.
So I traveled a lot in my 20s, but after a while, like I stopped getting as much energy and value from
Yeah.
to a new place. So I was kind of like, I want to settle down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've been interested in learning languages myself for many years, but now the new languages I'm learning are more like in dance and martial arts. Like I want to like
Mhm.
get master the entire vocabulary of
Yeah.
striking. So every
Yeah.
single punch and kick, roundhouse. I want to like
Mhm.
dial in the pronunciation of my accent. So
Mhm.
the Muay Thai accent versus the Taekwondo accent. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
focusing on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a bit when I was younger. I love it. I would like to do it now, but it's just with my lifestyle, it's hard to go to carry around the gi with me everywhere and
I find it no
kind of
gi. I would go gi.
yeah, well, I would go no gi too, but well, I'm not because I'm like white belt with 3 stripes. So there a lot of schools that say no, you have to be like was it blue belt in order to start doing no gi. And I was like, okay, whatever. So yeah,
But it's not that common. It's not as common. It's more common that people that choose to know you. You gotta find the right
yeah,
schools.
yeah, it's gotta find the right schools exactly. But yeah, actually, I would say that there's many similarities between learning languages and martial arts, and yeah, I would say there's not a lot of people that really explain it. Like you said, like there's nuances to how to strike, there's nuances to how to do a choke, there's nuances to how to transition from one thing to another, just like there's a transition from one sound to another. So it makes sense that you would transition to that. So basically you're trying to have the two businesses now. So the one would be for the languages, the accent reduction, the pronunciation, the mimicry, and the other one would be for fitness, movement that can be applied. Is it just for martial arts or can be applied to basically
It's for everything.
any yeah.
It's a pretty revolutionary product. Like if you think the method was like innovative, this is
Yeah.
even more so. It actually began with me having a scoliosis since I was a
Okay.
teenager, which is when your spine is curved.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it was starting to get worse. I'm 35 now. It started to get worse. Like I started noticing it more, and like I'm like, I've had it in my head for years that like one year I'm just gonna drop everything and like figure this out. So
Yeah.
finally, 2021, I did that. I just like stopped everything. I stopped
Mhm.
doing like language stuff or anything, and I just focused exclusively on figuring that out and like training different systems and the kind of things. And then
Mhm.
in the process, I came up with my own system. It's called muscle fluency,
Okay.
and then yeah, now I've my spine is super straight, and
Yeah.
yeah, so basically it's pretty, it does a lot of stuff, but my general thing is just I create methods, and now my new model, before I had made courses and sold courses, now all my content's free, and it's like
Mhm.
just dial in and keep perfecting the method, and then find other trainers and practitioners who also want to dial in and perfect the method,
Mhm.
and build a community of masters
Mhm.
basically. So yeah.
Mhm. Uh, do you find it difficult to find other people to basically, well, you might describe it in other words, but yeah, I've tried to get other teachers because my methodology obviously is very different from, yeah, the methodology that many people use for teaching languages. Yeah, I find it hard sometimes to, get a teacher and say, like, this is how I want you to teach. My students love how I teach. This is how you should teach. And a lot of them don't really want to go along with it. They, oh no, I'm going to teach my way. I like, yeah. You get the students, but I'll teach my way. Like, no. My students like me because of how I teach. So you gotta teach the way I teach. Did you have difficulties trying to find those like-minded people, or was it a fairly easy process just because of your reputation? Yeah, you just sent out a message and people were sending you messages back saying, "Oh yeah, I want to get involved in this."
Yeah, well, that's its own art form, trying to attract and find and train and balance out your style with other styles, expanding out while still maintaining a through line. That's you can't have everyone doing a different thing. So the current, that's like a work in progress. That's like a lifelong art I'm going to be
Yeah.
developing. Is how do I find and attract people, and then the way things are set up now, which is working very well, and I like this model, is we have the method, and you work through a sequence of kind of like
modules. Okay.
yes, modules, and it's kind of like you break down the skill of mimicry into its
Mm-hmm.
subcomponents. Like, okay, these are the 47 sounds of German or French. These are the melody patterns. These are these, and then you're either getting them right or wrong, right? This is the ever-growing library of techniques to get someone from wrong to right on this specific thing. And then you as a teacher, you have your own style of figuring that out. I actually don't care as long as you get the results. So I'm trying to orient things concrete results.
It's like decentralized. So like obviously you're the focal point of this organization, but you basically tell your instructors, your teachers, like you guys can figure it out yourself as long as we get the results.
Exactly. So I'm trying to centralize it around results. And so it's like, boom, I have all this content and a clear curriculum. And then the student, and it's good for the teacher because the student just watches my videos and curriculum. And then the workflow for like our coaching practice is like, let's just say you meet with like Nuria, our Spanish teacher, once or twice a week. And then she guides you through the curriculum. So there's like a central thing. They're learning from me because they're seeing my videos and doing things. And then you get on call and then be like, oh, this video he now said I can't do what he's doing. And then she unblocks you on the call.
So makes sense.
So it's easy. So there is a methodology that they're learning, but then they have freedom of expression to kind of figure out their own ways of getting them through that curriculum.
Well, and it does take a long time to train these instructors, because actually I talked to the Russian accent coach, and well, she has a system basically where she teaches advanced students, and she just basically finds students of hers which are really, really good at learning what she teaches, and then she asks them, hey, would you like to work with me? I think you'd be a great teacher. Is it similar to that, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how I'm going to do it for the muscle fluency thing. To basically find the students, you need two things. Someone has to be a good student, like they learn it intuitively and they're fast at it. But that's not enough. There's some people who are like great practitioners and not great teachers, right? Like great athletes, but not great coaches, kind of thing. So there's another set of skills that make someone a good coach and teacher. And those have to do with like empathy and making people feel safe and all that kind of stuff. So it's a whole art, I guess. I think honestly, one of the master arts of existence is the art of teaching and the art of coaching. And so, for me, for language is a bit different because ideally I want native speakers to be the ones coaching it. So it's different things to play around with. I do different aptitude tests in the beginning. So I'm like, I can see early on if someone's gonna like take longer to learn the stuff. So I want to find people who can like pick it up intuitively, who have a good energy and vibe. I want to hang out with them because then we meet up in like exotic locations and then like we train all day and like climb mountains and have a good time and fun. So like right now I'm just kind of like finding people who have an aptitude and like I want to be friends with them, and then we just hang out and then they learn just by hanging out and then they do and they get better and then it's fun. I'm having fun with it now. Before I was like very lonely, like making courses by myself. Now I got like a team who are all like flowing and having a good time.
I'm still in a lonely phase. Like you said, because sometimes I'll, for example, on Facebook groups, there'll be like some gringo couple in Colombia, like they teachers, but then I look at them and I look at how they speak, just their body language, everything, their age. I just think like, I could maybe, like send a message like, hey, would you like to teach for me? But I just think they're very different from me, like different mentality, different everything. And I think it'd be difficult to work with them. So I like what you said, where you're trying to find people that more or less they vibe with you and they vibe with how you teach and your methodology.
Yeah, but I still want that diversity. Like, the ideal for me is that you have all of the kind of colors of the rainbow in terms of the different types of teaching and learning styles, but they're all unified by a central curriculum and goal structure.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people like me, like my teaching style, but some people just might be drawn more towards your style or towards this person's style.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not like one of these like, oh, everything works equal and blah blah blah. Like, no, no, no. Like, that style might just be trash, or like that,
Mhm.
like that method might suck. So for
Yeah. Yeah.
me, I'm focused on more like the hard part, like the methodology and the methods and the results of the metrics, and
Hmm.
then letting that be the structure that like anyone can come in with a style. But then we can be like, right
Hmm.
now I'm working on incentive structures, so now it's pretty cool. We have group cohort training,
Okay.
and then people come in as feedback coaches,
Yeah.
where they are like in charge of a set of students and they're listening
Yeah.
to the recording and feedback. But then we're basically paying them based on how many people actually like complete the program and get results. So
Yeah,
they
for sure.
you do whatever you got to do to figure out how to get these guys to learn the language, and then share whatever's working with the other people so
Yeah.
that they can do it. So it's teamwork, and then
Yeah.
just kind of laying the soil, and then
Yeah.
things that I can go start to emerge. Like, I'm trying to
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
cultivate innovation fundamentally.
No, no, yeah, yeah. No, I really like that. That sounds fat. Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole different, like you said, it's a whole different skill, like trying to build an organization and yeah, get people to be innovative. Yeah, it's very interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Um, maybe I don't, two more things to end this interview because I know you have to call somebody in I think half an hour. Uh,
Yeah.
I forgot to talk to you about it, so you can talk about it for however long you want to talk about it. But you talked about melody. I'm very curious about melody because obviously when I first did the mimic method that you created a long time ago now, you taught with songs. So I'm wondering if do you still believe that melody to learn melody in a language, the best way to do it is through the music, or do you now believe there's other ways to get a good melody in a language?
Yeah. So to be clear, when we say speech melody, we talk about melody in general with our voice. You
Yeah.
have your larynx, and then it
Hmm.
goes, oh, right? So we go up and down when we speak. Singing is when you're hitting musical notes,
Yeah.
and I am da 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 da, and
Hmm.
no one has like no one speaks the song, right? Like, I mean, it'd be cool if we did. So training, I use songs more as kind of like they're engaging and they're fun, and
Okay.
they teach rhythm, they teach kind of universal perception abilities. So if you
Hmm.
can rhythm and melody musically, then that makes you a better at perceiving and mimicking speech, rhythm, and melody. But speech and melody is different. So that way, the way we do it is we'll take phrases, let's say I'll take a phrase like, hey, how are you doing? And then we'll run like audio filters on it. So it gets muffled. So it goes from like, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And then we'll
Hmm.
loop it over and over again until it imprints into your brain.
Yeah.
And then we'll give you really precise feedback. And you'll be like, it's like, no, this note here is off.
Okay.
Try it again. So
Is that because I remember like is that kind of like what you do with the Audacity? I remember one of your tutorials for the program, or I was on YouTube. I can't remember, but yeah, you basically record yourself on Audacity, and then you would take the original file and compare it with basically your audio file and see if you were basically hitting the the melodies, the notes of the original file.
yeah, so back in the day, I had stuff where I teach people how to use a free software to record yourself and
Yeah.
compare to other recordings.
Yeah.
You can't compare your melody on that. That's just showing you timing and
Okay.
loudness.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it's more melody is the hardest one to train people on. It's just mostly just like direct feedback that
For sure.
works.
Yeah.
Some people have a good ear for pitch. Um,
Hmm.
I kind of teach general skills of noticing
Yeah.
and zooming your attention in. And but yeah, it takes a little bit more practice to kind of really match people's melodies. But it's super important. Like, I'm getting better at teaching it. But when you get someone, especially the identity thing we talked about,
Hmm.
when you get someone to really lock in to the melody layer,
Hmm.
it allows them to go deeper into the persona, into the
Yeah.
spirit and culture of the language. So yeah, but honestly, again, independent of like the rigorous technical training of it, I
Hmm.
find half of it is just people need to try. They need to
Yeah.
like care about it. try to pay attention and notice nuances and then really try. And if you just do that without any expert guidance, you can get really far.
Yeah. All right, makes sense. All right, now to end this, some things about your travels. Well, I want to talk about Montreal first because you're in Montreal, and many Latinos that, well, Canada right now is a very popular destination for Latinos that want to leave Latin America, and Montreal, well, it was a popular destination. I think there's new regulations and laws about French language, which is making it more difficult. But maybe for a Latino who's watching this, who's interested in Montreal, yeah, well, you're there, so I'm guessing you like the city. So what do you like about Montreal? Yeah, more or less. And how much time have you spent there? Well, you learned French there as well, right?
Yeah, I learned franglais here actually because so Montreal is like it's a deeply bilingual city. So mostly everyone speaks English with a like full on North American accent. You wouldn't be able to tell from the many other Canadian or American. But then they switch into French and then they'll do it in the middle of a sentence. So like a deeply mature person will literally switch between French and English every sentence. So I first became aware of that. I was actually in Colombia when I first launched my business, and my friend Montreal, and he was showing me videos of like movies. And I was like, yo, what is this place? Like people were speaking like kind of like people like the Haitians will speak like black people do in the US, which is really like mixed French with it. I'm like, in my head at the time, I was like, for me, like, you know, because I grew up with African Americans and stuff like that, like that mode of speaking was just on the other side of my brain as like French was. And I'm like you can mix two, that's crazy. So anyway, so it's super cool that way. Like culturally, it's a super diverse place. Not only do people mix French and English, like the people who are born to Latino immigrants, they'll mix Spanish and French and English. There's a lot of people like that, you know, from like Colombia, Mexican, El Salvador origin who are trilingual in a way. So I was just interested in it from a cultural linguistic point of view. So it's very diverse. Like a European city, it's very walkable. That's super important to me. I don't can't walk around a city. So it's super walkable. It's super easy to get around. And there's lots of arts. I come here in the summers. It's super cold in the winter, like ridiculously cold in the winter. I can't take it. But in the summer, because it's so cold and oppressive in the winter for like 9 months of the year, in the summer, everyone's just like, it's crazy. Like everyone's like outside, like in a park, like so happy the 3 months of the year they can do stuff. So every week starting in June, there's a festival. There's like some kind of music festival, some kind of arts festival. So yeah, for me as an artist, like last night I was on stage freestyle rapping to like, you know, like 100 people in this room because they have this event where you can just get on stage with like a full band and start like freestyle rapping. So like stuff like that is very common here. It's very artistic, very creative.
I usually tell people that Montreal is the cultural capital of Canada. If you want anything cultural, then go to Montreal.
Super cultural. Yeah.
So it makes sense. So like the main reason that you're drawn to the city is it's for that cultural aspect. Yeah, makes sense. All right, good. Well, now people know. Now just about Latin America to end this. So you've been in Colombia, you've been in Brazil, you've been in Mexico. I think those are the three main countries that you spent time in Latin America, right?
Yeah, Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia for sure. Yeah.
So I'll do some quick hitters with you just to find your thoughts. Are you okay with doing most favorite and least favorite? Or do you only want to do positive, most favorite? Your choice.
Yeah, I think I don't have like because
I was going to ask about like food and drinks and also just like cultural aspects. Because maybe let's start with Brazil because I'm in Brazil right now. You talked about walkable cities, and I would say actually Brazil seems to be the most car-centric Latin American culture so far. But I'm in southern Brazil. Who knows? Maybe it's different in other parts. But I was maybe a little bit disappointed because, like yourself, I prefer walkable cities more than a city where I have to drive everywhere. That's one reason why I'm not a big fan of Canadian and American cities, is because you gotta have a car if you want to get involved with the culture at all. Let's start with Brazil. And what's your favorite aspect of Brazil? You know, you've talked a little bit about coming back to Brazil, but what's your favorite aspect? Is it the music, or is there another thing that you like the most about Brazil?
Yeah, the music, but also just kind of like, it's not just like the quality of the music, but really the people's interaction with the music. So
okay,
as artistic as it is here, I was thinking about it yesterday with the crowd. Like for me, the best part, the music in Brazil is amazing. It's my favorite in the world. But more important than like the music itself is how the general population engages with the music. So my favorite thing in Brazil is that everyone's singing. Like everyone knows all the lyrics to all the songs all the time. It's wild.
Yeah.
Like you just some song will come on, you look around, and everyone's just kind of like, and then so like everyone's involved in the party versus like a a North American kind of culture where like people are kind of like they kind of reserve. Like for me, I'm all about the crowd. I'm all about everyone being on like the same flow and same wavelength. So Brazilians have that, not just like at events, but like just in the streets. So Rio is very walkable, and walkable for me means that not just so I can get from point A to point B to do stuff, but on the journey, interesting things that you've seen and experienced. So it's very common that from point A to point B, I'll hear live music in 10 different places, even if it's like an old man with like a Coca-Cola bottle going, and he'll be like, hey, and I can come dance with him a little bit. So like, it just like particularly in Rio and Salvador and like those places, just the opportunity just to like get involved and like with other people in a meaningful, musical, dancey, and playful experience. That's what I most love about Brazil. That's what I most love about life in general, and human beings. I'm Nigerian, so Africans are the same way. So that's what really draws me into it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because I haven't been to Rio yet, so I'm still thinking about it. Because most people think about Rio and Ipanema and Copacabana, but so what you're describing is that the entire city, like for example, there's Lapa, there's Botafogo, Botafogo. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different neighborhoods in Rio de Janeiro that many gringos never go to. So is it the entire city, or is there certain parts of the city that you particularly like to get that experience that you described?
Yeah, it's the entire city. I mean, it's a man, like Rio is like a culturally dense place, and there's like there's so many different stratas, rich, poor, favelas, the rich places. I mean, so it's just like there's just so much going on there, and there's so many people doing but they're all out in the street doing stuff. And so yeah, I mean, like each area offers different things based on what you're looking for, and like you just got to experience it. Like it's and of course, and it's also kind of like the trade-off with safety. And
the safety,
there's the trade-off there, because you can go to the places where things are a little bit more dicier, also tend to be the more fun. Like people are like, my friend was telling me he was like, he wandered into a favela accidentally, and then like all of a sudden these guys with AK-47s were with him, like, hey, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I don't have any problems. They're like, no, it's cool. Well, I'll take you to the mountaintop. And then like now he's like hanging out with these guys. It's just it's just adventure. It's not for the. I think my friend said like, Rio's not for beginners. Rio's not for beginners. Like you gotta really be ready to get involved.
All right, so that's your favorite part. Do you have like a least favorite part of like something about Brazil that you don't really like, that kind of grinds you the wrong way, rubs you the wrong way sometimes?
Yeah, fucking Comanda. I hate Comanda.
What is that?
It's just a stupid system. I just wanted to like become emperor of Brazil and just for a week and change it nationally. Yeah. When you go into like venues, they give you like this card, and
is that for like the men, like they write down what you bought?
Yeah, so you get a drink and then they write it down, and then on the way out you have to pay that thing, and you're like,
I experienced that for the first time in Curitiba, and I asked the Brazilians, they say, oh, but it's fantastic. Why? Of course, it's the best thing in the world.
That's all they know. And like, I just know that like the amount of time I spent waiting in the line, like, all right, when I want to leave and go home, and like here, I leave and go home. When you're like done with the night, the last thing you want to do is wait around for 45 minutes before you
just to pay your little receipt, your piece of paper, whatever it is. All right, makes sense.
Not efficient, but
that's
the one I'd say.
It's definitely
like any developing country, I think just like here I can get Amazon 1-day delivery, and like so like the conveniences of stuff are not, but I don't care about that stuff as much.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Colombia. Actually, it's funny that you're describing about the music. I went to my first reggaeton concert in Cali, Colombia, a year ago, and exactly like you described with the Brazilians, the same for the Colombians. Like the entire. I went to the Wisin and Yandel. You probably know Wisin and Yandel. So I went to the Wisin and Yandel concert, and quickly before I went, I looked up on YouTube, like, what songs do they have? I was like, oh, they got Noche de Sexo. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I know that song. And I was kind of thinking that the only song everybody was going to sing was the Noche de Sexo song. But no, from the beginning of the concert to the very end of the concert, everybody, there wasn't a single person sitting down, dancing and singing every lyric. And yeah, me as a Canadian, I was thinking, I can barely sing one song from beginning to end. Like, how are you people able to memorize all the lyrics to these songs? Yeah, for me, it was one of the most incredible experiences I ever had. I knew Latino concerts could be awesome, but I was just blown away by the Colombians and how they're able to sing all the lyrics to a group that's not even from Colombia. They're from Puerto Rico, or yeah, they're from Puerto Rico. It's like, how do you guys know these songs? So yeah. So I guess it's similar to Brazil, but yeah, is there another thing about Colombia that you love?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Colombia for similar reasons as Brazil. Like that kind of this Afro-Colombian culture. Like I liked not a lot of people go to it, but the Pacific coast.
Yeah, like the Buenaventura.
Yeah, Buenaventura, and like it's entirely Black population. And the kind of the traditional music from there is really good. Like I really like cumbia, but also stuff out there like what was it called, curulao, and like other stuff, like the marimbas, and like yeah, there's a musical aesthetic there that is very unique and also dense, and it's up there with Brazil in terms of one of the more musically rich areas. Like I'm not so much into salsa. And Cali, I couldn't spend too much time in Cali because it was just like, if I hear one more song, it's like every single bus.
Yeah, like the radio. Yeah, radio is just old salsa. It's literally old salsa. It never changes.
Like, yeah. I need more variety and like other stuff. But that's I like that out there, and yeah, people were cool, it's friendly out there as well.
Okay. Is there a least favorite thing about Colombia? There's something that you like you don't miss at all about the country, or that you don't like?
Yeah, I'll say the inside joke for all the gringos who care about is I'll blow the inside joke to all the Colombians watching, is that at least thing where I went in Cali and Bogota and Medellin, the Colombian arepas are not that good.
Oh no, yeah, oh yes. Colombian arepas are horrible, but Colombians honestly think that they're good. They honestly think that they're good. Yeah, they're so bad. And then you say, because I'll complain about the arepa paisa, and they say, oh, okay, maybe that one's not good, but we got other arepas. And like, no, like the only arepa that I kind of enjoy is the arepa boyacense. It's like the only one that
There's like there's some acceptable ones, but I'm like. The Venezuelan arepa,
they're awesome.
They're great.
So I'll tell Colombians they're your brothers. They're just learn some recipes. Learn some recipes from the Venezuelans. They'll show you how to make arepas. But yeah, the Colombians are convinced that their arepas are the best. Okay, well, I'm glad that you agree. I always tell my Colombian students this, and their expression literally is, well, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. They always ask because they always they're like. So, what do you think about our arepa?
Great. Yeah. It's like eating a hockey puck. Like the arepa is like eating a white hockey puck, and I don't know what am I supposed to do? But
made lots of enemies.
But actually, that's one thing about Colombia is I like, because I complain about the food, especially arepas, a lot. But luckily, no Colombian's been like, I'm going to kill you. You disrespected my culture. They're like, oh, okay, well, that's it. Like, they're a little bit shocked, but they're like, oh, well, I don't agree with you, but okay, yeah, whatever. It's okay. Yeah, whatever you think.
You guys got great culture, great people. You just don't have the greatest arepas. I'm sorry.
No.
You got lots of other things. It's fine. We're still a great place.
Yeah. All right. And last but not least, Mexico. Is there a favorite thing about Mexico that you love about it?
Anything about Mexico? I mean, and just the throw salt into the wound of the Colombians. Mexican food is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, food is like one of the best Colombians, go to Mexico. Just go to Mexico for 1 week. Eat tacos, eat enchiladas. Just experience good food. It'll be a life-changing experience. So,
That's good. They got great food, and it's kind of like this. I got a special place in my heart in Mexico because that was the first time I learned the language and got part of a culture, and just like hanging out with like Mexican friends, like, oh no way, you know, drinking beers
Mezcal,
and
tequila, pulque, whatever it is. Yeah, yeah. All right.
so
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. All right. And yeah, is there a least favorite thing about Mexico? Something that that you don't miss about it at all?
Um, it's not something I would say I miss or don't miss because I didn't really encounter it personally, but it does sadden me a lot. I find it interesting. I don't understand it, but the nature of violence in Mexico,
Okay.
with like the because I guess the kind of narco terrorism kind of basis of it
Mm-hmm.
is like disturbing. You know, with you know, you know, lower middle class Mexicans. Like in most parts of the world, poor parts of the world, like the lower class and the middle class are not the targets of like kidnapping, you know, for that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
like
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
so like yeah, I just like that aspect of things in Mexico. I just find very sad and
Yeah,
disheartening. And like
disheartening. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
All right.
so
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, that's good. Well, I got it. Yeah, because I was pronouncing your name wrong for the longest time. So Idausa. Yeah, Idausa, right? I said it right now. Idausa. All right. Idausa. Okay, good. All right. Well, Idausa. Well, before we sign off, well, because you're going to be releasing this new course in case somebody is interested in it. Yeah, because you're not doing too much on social media. So if somebody wants to find out more about your future coaching programs or courses, where can they get information about it?
yeah, so mimicmethod.com is where we have all our stuff. Our content's free, so you can go there and create a free account.
Mhm.
Uh, and then on Instagram, I'm Idahosa Ness, IDAHOSANESS. I don't have any posts. Like you said, I don't use social media, but soon I'll be launching this project, and you'll start seeing me do like a bunch of crazy body stuff on my Instagram.
Okay.
To launch it. So they can follow me there. And that project will be called Muscle Fluency. So I have the domain, don't have anything up yet. So musclefluency.com, we'll have stuff there within a couple of months.
Okay. So in the future. All right. Well, yeah, thank you very much for sitting down with me. It was a pleasure. It was an honor to finally talk to you and to meet you. So yeah, anybody who's interested in what Idausa does, I'll put the links, everything in the description. And Idausa, have a great time in Montreal, and whatever your future plans are, good luck with everything. Okay.
You too, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Cheers.